as adults, we all sort of see things from our perspective. But the cool thing about this customer was that not only is it the mom, but it's also the girl who's, a lot smaller. And then you also have this doll who also is coming with the girl and experiencing things. So we wanted to think about how could this retail store, where obviously mom and dad are paying for everything, but that it could be for everyone else as well.
You're listening to Retail Remix, your inside access to candid conversations with the people shaping retail's future. Here's your host, Alicia Esposito.
There are some brands who don't just participate in culture, don't just take from it and apply it to their product, their marketing, or customer experience. No, there are some brands that truly influence and drive culture. Arguably, American Girl is one of those brands. Over the years, the brand has become a staple for so many children and households. And it's not just about one product. It's about an ecosystem of goods and immersive experiences that are happening both online and in physical environments. But what can other brands and retailers across categories learn from and apply from the American Girl playbook? I'm glad you asked, because today we are going to be exploring this very topic with creative executive at American Girl, Kristina Duncan. She co-presented at the Retail Innovation Conference Expo with Ted Galperin of Mythology, who is an agency partner of American Girls. And they really explored this idea of retail storytelling, what it really means and entails, and how to do it effectively to create a true legacy brand that in a way becomes a sanctuary of storytelling for all consumers. Not just the kids, but the adults too. Listen in, because I personally have loved following the evolution of the brand and all of the different ways it shows up, whether it's through virtual metaverse-like experiences, like its digital museum that's shoppable, or its physical stores, which really bring the best of product discovery and merchandising, as well as experiential activations like salons and cafes. They get into it all.
Hello. Thanks, everyone, for coming. As Adam mentioned, I'm Ted, and this is Kristina.
I'm Kristina.
And we're really excited to get into what we are working on today. So we called this session Retail Storytelling Isn't Just for Kids. Mythology and American Girl have been working together for the past 2 years, really trying to reimagine what retail could be for this amazing Mattel brand. And so obviously we've kind of covered this bit. And then we're going to talk kind of in 3 chapters. First, just setting the scene, talking about where the brand has been and where it could, potentially go. The most recent project we worked on together, which was a 15,000 square foot flagship in Dallas. And the last is some key takeaways that hopefully will be relevant for all of you. So, Chapter 1, Setting the Scene. So we're really excited to dive into the world of storytelling and explain why it's essential for retail success. As we all know, there's plenty of stores out there, but very few do what we call retail storytelling, where you really, when you walk into that store, you are surrounded and immersed in the culture of the brand and the sort of fantasy of the brand. As it says on that screen, retail storytelling really transforms shopping into meaningful experiences. And we really feel like that meaningful experience really does help to boost engagement and drive business success. So I wanted to just talk about what immersive experiences means for us. And I looked to the world of art for some of those experiences. So like this Barbara Kruger piece, immersive experiences really help to tell stories. There is, sort of a world in which you can be completely immersed. The Rain Room, which was an amazing piece about 10 years ago, where you could walk in the middle of a rainstorm, in the middle of a museum, and really engage with those senses and that visceral feeling of walking through the rain. This Yayoi Kusama piece of a blank room in the middle of the modern turbine hall, where visitors were given a big book of stickers where they could kind of add to this room and participate in the experience. And then finally, foster emotional connection. This room actually took all the heartbeats of the people in it and changed the lights based on the rhythms of everyone's heartbeat. A little bit about Mythology. We are small. We're independently owned, but creatively led. We're about 50 people, and this is like a little drawing of what our office looks like on a good day. And we really feel like we understand how every consumer touch point of a brand uses its foundations to communicate how people will experience it in a physical space. And these are just some projects we've worked on. We helped Coca-Cola, and not only do we do retail, we do advertising and branding. We helped Coca-Cola tell their story better. We helped Universal go after Disney. We've been working with Target over a decade, helping them with all their in-house brands, all their limited time offers, back to school, things like that. We're really proud of that partnership. We've worked with the independent studio A24 to help tell their story as a movie studio. We created the brand that sells 1 in 5 razors in the U.S., which is Harry's. And we helped flip a $35 billion industry on its head, in the world of eyewear with Warby Parker, where we've been working with them since their induction. Away Luggage, we've really helped them build out their retail. And Mirror as well. We named it, did the advertising, did the branding, and also did their retail. Another project we're really proud of is Sonos, where we created these independent listening pods where you're really able to understand the power of having your whole home connected by sound. And then something like Beauty Counter, we turned their beauty store into a content hub where all of their community members could share content through the space. And then finally, Tend, where we made going to the dentist something you actually look forward to. And I'll just skip through these. Allbirds, Sweet Green, we got them all. And finally, we took an old bar in Tribeca and turned it into a men's store for J. Crew. A little bit of the American Girl brand. I'll pass it over to Kristina.
American Girl is one of Mattel's brands, and at Mattel, we build our brands off of a really specific playbook, and that starts with a meaningful brand purpose, and at American Girl, that's to build girls of strong character. We then create product that extends that purpose, content, immersive stories and books and storytelling that build on that brand purpose, and then for American Girl, most importantly, our experiential retail stores. And so that is kind of the basis of how we build our creative brands at Mattel.
Yeah, and American Girl, the experience is this sort of collection of magical moments filled with goodness, and it really is about nourishing a girl's spirit and sending her imagination soaring and making dreams come true. And that brief, which came from the founder of Pleasant Rowland of American Girl, really was the driving force for our retail project. And we love this idea of the customer not just being the girl, but also being the mom and the doll itself. So we like to imagine that even the doll, this is the one place in the world where this doll can get her hair done, this doll can go to a cafe, this is a place for them. And the cool thing, too, is that when the girls eventually do grow up and become moms, they want to bring that same sense of joy and nostalgia and fun that they had as a little girl to their child as well. And we really think of that cycle of customers as a really crucial part of what makes American Girl so magical. Like any good brand, there's always brand tensions. There's things that make that brand interesting. If something's only sweet, you need a little salty to make something interesting. So we did a little bit of strategy with American Girl, and we found these were our few brand tensions: realism versus make believe, history versus today, and premium versus fun. So with realism versus make-believe, we really saw that the consumer insight was that mothers and daughters value realness in the dolls. That's what all the focus groups and things like that said. But we also understood that the diehard fans really love the fantasy. And so we wanted to leverage that juxtaposition of realness and fantasy and enhance that meticulous doll detail to create sort of this captivating brand magic. And so at retail, what we wanted to do was take that experience and embody that paradox where the realism is what actually fosters the fantasy and that sort of tension. History versus today. So obviously American Girl is rooted in these historical doll characters, but for a brand to succeed, it can't just look backwards. So we also wanted to tell sort of some contemporary stories that would be relevant. So we wanted to take that sort of historical depth and the kind of history of the brand, but also modernize it with sort of stories from today, and use that to make a commitment to both sort of the interactive storytelling of these current narratives. Finally, premium versus fun. The consumer insight was that everyone loves these American Girl dolls, but they were sort of sitting on the sidelines, maybe where a girl might play with another type of doll instead. So how could we make this whole experience feel premium, which mom really needs to justify the price tag, but fun enough for the girls to feel like they can really enjoy themselves? So we enhance the play value of the dolls to encourage active engagement and not just display. And then, the retail objective was to create an experience that felt premium for mom, but also was inviting and fun for these young girls. And so our product storytelling, coupled with this pioneering experiential retail, which American Girl is really known for, defined it as a iconic toy brand. You can see some of these early photos. This was sort of the world where these girls could finally the stuff that they had seen in the catalogs had sort of could come to life and live in that fantasy for the first time. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, maybe I'll just chat about the next slide.
Okay, great.
One of the most important pieces of inspiration that we shared with the Mythology team was a personal essay written by the founder of American Girl, Pleasant Rowland. And this essay was really the inspiration of why she started the American Girl Place and all these experiential retail environments for the American Girl brand. And what she talks about in the essay is a special day she had with her own mom, where they actually right here in Chicago went to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and then out for dinner. And what she remembers most is all the sensory experiences that she had on that special day, whether it's the cinnamon buns that she had at dinner or the beautiful blue and golden ceiling of the symphony orchestra. And it was such a beautiful kickoff to the sensory experience that Mythology designed for our American Girl store. So I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. Yeah, and we really see the five senses as something that's not utilized enough at retail. Obviously, we use sight and touch as a reason for physical retail, but there's so many other opportunities to connect with customers in a retail space. So from the music we play to like these cinnamon buns like we were talking about, and taste, coffee bars, things like that. I think there's a lot of room to create these sensorial experiences that then give you a really deep memory of being in that space and kind of imbue brand loyalty. So our objective of this new retail experience was to captivate and invite young girls and their families into an immersive world. And creating this immersive world really is what American Girl does so well, and we wanted to just sort of build on that same promise. So we moved to Dallas. So Dallas was our first project we worked on together. It was they were in a previous location for the last 10 years and moving to a new one, and we really saw it as sort of a clean blank slate to modernize this incredible history of retail experience. So it's 15,000 square feet. It was 2 stories. It's at the Park Lane, Dallas, which if people are familiar with Dallas, it's across from North Park, which is actually the most shopped intersection in Dallas. So we had a lot of, sort of pressure on us to make something really impressive. There was sort of this second floor parking entrance. So rather than a traditional sort of ground level entry, you sort of parked your car and walked in from the second level. And there was also a full kitchen. So we were able to have our cafe experience as well. Just some quick sort of modeling, massing, just to get a sense of what the space looked like. It had this really interesting sort of platform in the middle that was existing of the floor plate. So it was this sort of perch in the middle of all these windows and in the middle of all this sort of open air volume. And we really wanted to figure out how could we use this as sort of the anchor point for the whole experience. It was something you really saw from all parts of the store. And what could we do with it? And so we had, definitely some rounds of creative, and what we landed on was this idea of scale as a thematic element. Obviously, as adults, we all sort of see things from our perspective, but the cool thing about this customer was that not only is it the mom, but it's also the girl who's, a lot smaller. And then you also have this doll who also is coming with the girl and experiencing things. So we wanted to think about how could this retail store, where obviously mom and dad are paying for everything, but that it could be for everyone else as well. And so we thought about the scale from 3 different perspectives. And so if part of the magic of American Girl lies in transforming our life-size world into a doll-sized one, right? It's everything from the tiny pony to the beautiful little dresses and hats and all that sort of stuff. If that's sort of the magic of the brand, how could we do the inverse for the retail space and turn this doll-sized world into a life-sized one? And so what we landed on with that platform I mentioned earlier was this idea of a dollhouse, which was a central design feature with this 2-story dollhouse. We liked the idea of taking something that was normally very, very small and built for our 18-inch dolls and blowing it up to life size. As we mentioned earlier, there's this idea of history with the brand, so we wanted to create something that felt like it was out of a storybook, that it was out of one of these doll characters' storylines, but not necessarily tied to something specific. So above, we did our salon where your daughter or the child and the doll can get their hair and nails done. Down below is the berry bar where you can have a very grown-up mocktail. And then inside, down on the first floor, was for the younger dolls, the baby dolls and the like. And we really thought of it as this multifunctional hub that really did the heart of the storytelling for the brand. So it was really connecting those retail spaces and experiences, which is sort of unusual for a store itself. And then we wanted it to be this captivating narrative environment where when you're in our store, we're almost living as an American Girl doll, walking around the space, feeling like you were in this doll-sized world. And so we really wanted that storybook space to be, sort of anchoring that space. And here's the result. You can see this is our 2-story dollhouse. It has this beautiful clapboard siding. It's painted in the brand colors, which we call the berry patch. And then we love these little details like the window boxes with the flowers and things like that, to just sort of the lanterns, the shutters, the dental molding. We really wanted to think through all these details so that it really felt like this magical experience. And the cool thing is when you see these little kids come into the space, their jaws truly do drop. They've never seen something like this before in their life. And it really is a really rewarding experience to see. Some other views. This is what that space looks like. We love the idea, too, of, especially since the building itself was quite modern, in appearance. We love the idea of doing something that contrasted with this, sort of more traditional little house inside. And you can see the cool thing is, because the space is 2 stories and quite open, it really is this sort of world inside of another world. And we have our Dutch doors. Let me use my... so seeing into getting the salon. And we wanted it to always have these little windows where you were seeing things done. These are premium experiences that you have to pay for. And we also wanted there to be that value where a little girl sees that and says, oh, I got to do that. I have to have my doll's hair done. And that it felt like once you're inside, there was another insight too that, these kids, they don't want to be on display. They're shy still. And so creating these sort of smaller spaces within this quite large space allowed them to have a little bit of that privacy and feel more comfortable. And here are some of our original mood boards. We thought it'd be fun to kind of share those too, how some of these ideas start and where they come from. And we love the idea of, for the salon, the outside being this really rich, perfect kind of storytelling sort of historic world, but the inside be incredibly modern, so that there was always this play between what is contemporary and what is historic. And here you can kind of see what that space looks like from the outside. Again, back to that idea of scale, we even had the check-in counter be a miniature version of the dollhouse. Again, so there's always like this play between something that's life-size and something that's doll-size, which I think the kids really get a kick out of. And then we left lots of little Easter eggs for the diehard fans, like 1986 above the doorway is the year the brand was founded. And then, of course, we painted everything in our brand colors to really connect it back to the sort of the brand guidelines. And then fun moments inside the space. This is the nail counter. We did this beautiful cameo with the silhouettes of the different dolls, almost like different ways to style the doll's hair, and then sort of topped it off with this really pretty bow. Again, just really creating this fantasy moment that feels age appropriate, but lovely, and also makes the price tag feel worth it for mom and dad. In the cafe, again, this is, really special experience for these girls where it's the only place where dolls can actually eat beside you. And so we wanted it to be this really fun, sort of wonderland experience. So from the menus to the upholstery, we wanted it to feel like this kind of fantasy land. And here's the result. You can see we took all of these chairs and we actually used the dress patterns from the various historical dolls to be all of the upholstery. We even created a very grown-up bar for these little girls to have and enjoy a meal. And then fun things like some really beautiful photography by a diehard fan by the name of Cindy Paulson, lines the walls. And then fun moments like, again, the check-in being the miniature version of the doll house, and then small little seats for the dolls to eat at and things like that. Moving on to this staircase, staircases are always really tough in retail. It's really hard to get people to go between 2 floors. So how can we make that more magical? We were also coming up on 40 years of the brand, which is, wild to think. And there's been so much content that's been created over the years, from illustrations to photography. And then each of these dolls have their own little world. So we wanted to create kind of like a family album down the staircase where people could really connect with the dolls they love. And so, here's a little, I just wanted to show you one of our renderings to show you kind of how deeply we think about all these small details before we actually build them. We really feel like this is a fun part of the process. And again, back to that idea of scale, we did 3 different handrails, one for mom, for adults, one for a little girl, and then we even had an 18-inch size for the doll itself. And then here's that sort of family album I was speaking to. So there's a mix of illustrations and photography, and we really loved and it's very cool to see these kids. They even spend time on the stairs just looking at all of these different moments. And then even at the bottom, we had some depth underneath the staircase, so we put these beautiful display cases, which were artfully designed by American Girl's incredible visual merchandising team, that really sort of helped bring the thing to life. And what's cool with something like this is this becomes the sort of moment where mom takes the picture of her doll. This is the memory, or her daughter and their dolls, and this is sort of one of those places where everything is shared. And then finally, we have the party room, which is a really, really special place for little girls to have their birthday parties. And so we really wanted it to be this fantasy land. You know, the star is an integral part of the American Girl brand, and so we really wanted it to feel like this sort of birthday event under the stars and really create this kind of fantasy land that felt different than the rest of the retail space. And so what we did was we obviously had our same chairs that you saw earlier. We have a really special chair for the girl. And then we did behind her, Find Your Inner Star, but was actually written in the handwriting of a, how old?
9-year-old.
9-year-old little girl. And so again, like that moment of girlhood when you're learning how to write cursive, you're learning how to write neater. We really wanted to sort of celebrate that like kind of insight. So we took that handwriting and turned it into neon. And then there's all this fun lighting that you can't really see that kind of transforms the whole space. And what's cool too is we did something where we had, rather than, these are 3 different rooms, but then we used a product called Skywall that actually folds itself up into the ceiling. And so if you wanted to have a birthday party for 40 kids, you could do it in this really cool long space. And then some final fun moments. Again, back to that idea of scale, which has been a theme throughout this project. We even did a door for little girls and their dolls to walk through at the entry. So rather than just going through the adult-sized door, we have a small little door that kids just go crazy for. And then we had this sort of long catwalk bridge that we didn't really know what to do with. It was kind of hard to merchandise. And so at the end, we put this really fun photo moment where, a little girl stands in the middle and, when you take the photo, it looks like you're surrounded by all your best doll friends. And so I'll pass it back to you.
Great. Thank you. I'll go through these quickly because I want to make sure that we have time for questions. But when we thought about collaborating on this really important project for the American Girl brand, we were at a really important time in our brand history. We had just executed a new rebrand and a new brand identity and aesthetic. And so finding a partner that could help us shine light on the future, but also a nod to our nostalgic and rich history was the most important part in finding the right partner. Mythology came highly recommended to us, and we had a great first call with them that was just filled with energy and curiosity and great chemistry. And so that's something that I would definitely recommend as you're venturing into a new creative project. We obviously had some challenges in the project. We had a staircase and a kitchen and a catwalk in the space that couldn't be moved. And so creatively we had to find solutions to work around some of these architectural things that were needed to be where they were and maybe weren't in the place that we would all have had them as our first choice. But it was a really, I think some of those limitations created some of the best outcomes for the store. And so it ended up being really fun. So like, as Ted was saying before, like we had this catwalk right in the middle of the store and we were like, what are people going to do there? And now it's like the best place to take a photo of your daughter peeking out of the Dutch door of the salon. So there's some really happy surprises that came out of the biggest challenges. And then a couple of just key takeaways from the partnership. I think as you work through a project, and I've felt this way as a creative in my whole career, I think the energy of how you build the project shows in the final result. And so when you visit the American Girl store in Dallas, you can feel the joy and the ease and the creativity that went into building this project and the partnership that we had as we built it.
So how has the store influenced purchasing behaviors and brand loyalty?
I mean, this was our first expression of our new brand aesthetic, and I think we're seeing consumers are loving the space and are feeling not only really invited in, it feels like that perfect modern expression of a brand that has a nostalgic past as well. And so the store is performing really well, and so we hope to take this aesthetic and wrap it across our other retail and experiential environments.
All right. So finally, some lessons learned, hopefully some key takeaways for you guys. We really feel like retail needs to be the brand manifestation. It really should be the temple to your brand. And creating that powerful retail concept, in this case, of the sort of the store as a dollhouse and a doll world and that sense of scale really became sort of the spine of all the work that we did and allowed us to sort of always use that as a sort of barometer of a good idea versus a bad idea if it supported that same concept. So having a really strong retail concept and doing that from the beginning really helps make a great store and helps in the long run make better decisions. Empathy and perspective, we always put yourself in your customer's shoes, even if they are doll-sized. We really need to prioritize and understand what customers need and then design the store from a user first rather than trying to do it the other way. Sensory and magical enhancements. We really wanted to tap into those five senses like Pleasant's original vision for American Girl Place. Really make sure that it's not just shopping, but it's this whole memorable event that is really special day in your child's life. And then finally, just that emotional experiential connection. You really blending reality and fantasy in the space to create something that's escapist, fun, and really creates a deep emotional connection between the customer and the brand itself and makes it into that day to remember. So tell your story, engage the senses, invite participation, and foster emotional connection. And that's our little spiel.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Retail Remix. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on your favorite podcast player. Until next time, keep mixing it up.